Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. Thank you very much for being here, and all of you great and excellent, kind folks who've come back to the channel. It's been 3 months, and oof, that's a long time for being away from the interwebs. I am glad to be here. So before we get back into our usual, where we have like our Monster Mondays and Trope Tuesdays and all that kind of business, it's been a while, and a lot of us have been locked away or in our own worlds and such. And so I thought, like many of you, we've kind of binged some TV shows and watched some movies, and well, in a way to punish you guys because of the punishment I took, I've seen quite a few things that uh, I wasted my time and I won't get that time back. And I think all of you guys can understand this. So we are a tabletop RPG content location where we try cast over here on our own Discord server down in the boiler room. We broadcast on YouTube and Twitch. But what I'm getting at is sometimes we see something with a great premise, an excellent premise, but the execution is terrible. So I'm not suggesting you actually go out and see these things, but I'm saying, wow, the premise actually sounds kind of cool. Why don't we take a look at it and use it for our tabletop RPG games? And so today, our second day into it, I thought we'd take a look at the Netflix movie, and I believe it's a graphic novel called The Last Days of American Crime. Oof, I to mess that up. Um, so okay, what is the premise of The Last Days of American Crime? All right, so a lot of times when we see these terrible um, projects or these strange or weirdly constructed movies or television shows or something, what draws us in is the premise of it. And so the premise of this is The Last Days of American Crime is a 2020 American action thriller film directed by Olivier Megaton, and it involves okay. It was a screenplay written by Carl. I'm gonna butcher this name. Uh, Gadusek or Jadusek, based on Rick Remember and Greg Ticini's 2009 graphic novel of the same name. It stars Edgar Ramirez, Anna Brewster, Michael Pitt, Patrick Bergin, and Shart Shartlito Copley. Shartlo Copley. Anyway, the premise is that in this kind of dystopian future, crimes run rampant. Criminality is basically the name of the game, right? It's like a cyberpunk-ish style dystopian urban future. Okay, but here's the thing: the governments have been pushed to the brink where they have a countdown. I mean, you see it on billboards and on television screens and everything. It's broadcast everywhere that they're going to send a signal that will stop all crime. So the idea here is that the main protagonists in the story are going to attempt one last great heist before all crime is stopped. Okay. Yeah, like Gaster Two Soul says here on Twitch, says, AKA, you have a great idea, but a horrible attempt. Yeah. Oh, and we've wasted a lot of our time with that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I have to say, Netflix here in the States is kind of filled with these kind of story ideas. But what got to me about this was like that there's a really cool heist concept, tension, kind of get things done before this thing happens idea. And it doesn't necessarily need to be overriding. So I thought we would take a look at this, the idea of what if there's a signal out there that basically stops whatever the PCs are doing. Now, does it have to be a crime? No, but it's kind of cool to have a heist and a crime genre in any kind of tabletop RPG where the players must accomplish a mission before something overriding stops them, right? And so, hey, Dead Man. By the way, like I mentioned before, this show is live each day, 6 a.m., and you can participate. You can join our Discord server, and if you join the Discord, you can drop in links and pics, and you're not limited by word count. But if that's not your thing, you can also join in live on YouTube and Twitch. Cameron says, I recently got into Conan. So far, I'm having a blast. Oh, yeah, Conan's pretty cool. I heard the second movie is bad, but the premise seems cool to me. The second Conan movie reminds me of like a Dungeons and Dragons party, right? You've got like, a warrior and a wizard and a thief and stuff. It's not the best, but if you go into it looking at it like that, it's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah, the first movie, yeah, to see your enemies driven before you and hear the lamentations of the women, it's really cool. I'm surprised he didn't have like one leg bigger than the other from walking in a circle for all those years in the beginning of that movie. It's so awesome. Gasper Two Soul says, to be honest with you, D, I'd probably would have preferred chick bites up and down my legs over seeing some of these films. Yeah, some of them because sometimes you guys know when you have a great premise and you're just like, that sounds great. Like, and sometimes you even have this. If you're intrigued enough, we often put aside our critical thinking hat because we want to dive into it. Like, oh no, I don't want to know anything about this. Just let the information and the execution wash over me. And yeah, like Rickard says, second Conan movie equals better Conan, worse plot. Yeah, yeah. It's and strangely enough, even though we call Conan a barbarian, the second movie is more in line with the real Conan, who's more of like a an adventurer and a thief kind of character rather than a Dungeons and Dragons styled barbarian, But yeah, it's kind of cool. Gasper Two Souls says, at least the chick bites have a consistent premise and outcome over these pieces of crap. That's funny. Oh man. Okay, so this flick called the Last Days of American Crime. I keep wanting to butcher the name. The Last Days of Crime, the Last American Crime in the City. I don't know what. Anyway, the title doesn't matter. But the cool thing about this idea is that unlike most role playing games or traditional role playing games, we usually measure success and failure by death, right? Like, oh, well, if my character dies, I no longer move forward. If my character dies, the story's over. Basically, there's a TPK or something. But I, the idea that there's going to be a signal sent out that will prevent all crime, and mind you, you could erase the word crime with whatever the protagonists need to do, right? And yeah, there it is. Yeah. Thank you, Dead Man. Yes, and the great thing about that is this works really well whether you're talking far fantasy, arcane magic, or far future where you have people with like technological implants or something. And this could be something that the player characters themselves are thrown into and they have to get something done. For example, in the far future, maybe there is a space habitat, not necessarily the entire solar system, but maybe there's a habitat. And things have just gotten far out of hand, and the government or whoever's council or AI system or something is just going to shut everything down. Now, this might be a safety measure as well, to stop something that the players may or may not be part of within the setting. So, for example, players arrive in a city of thieves, and the local law shows up. Right? They come in with an army of like paladins and knights and cavaliers or something, and the head of them is like, we're going to shut this city of thieves down, and the player characters just happen to be there when they are going to begin a ritual or call down the hands of the gods or something, like to cast a spell or to reinstate the leadership that's able to control something, or the city elicits the help of a council of wizards that's going to cast a spell to stop all of this. And instead of using a scalpel, they use a hammer, and they just go, oh, you mean stop all crime? Fine, we'll just cast a spell that affects, I don't come up with some 20,000 people's minds that prevents them from doing such a thing. And the the great thing about this is the players may have the ability to still operate, but they just can't do the thing that they want to do. Right? So whether it's player characters have to hack a system and they're going to throw up a firewall that's just completely impassable, whether there is some kind of exploit or intrusion into everyone in a society that's got implants or cortical stacks or something, and there's some kind of a mechanism that can infiltrate into that region, and who knows, maybe there's some kind of hypnotism. And of course this could be how it's implemented is also important too. Is it a sound that broadcasts through vehicles driving through the streets? Is it a magical light in the sky and everyone looks up at it and becomes very passive? Are they? Is it a gas that spreads through every corner of the city, and if you breathe in the gas, you are like paralyzed or frozen in place, or you become forgetful or something? Like you, so even how it's implemented, and mind you, the implementation of it, you're the game master or dungeon master or whatever. The implementation of it doesn't really matter. It's just how do the players interact with it, right? Like there might not be any saving throws, and you tell them up front, like, no, the gods are reaching their hands down, like they're not going to let this happen. And wherever the light blasts through the clouds, radiant energy will sweep over the land, and you won't be able to commit your crimes or something, whatever the case may be. So going back into the chat, Rickard Johansson, what's going on there? Says a worldwide arcane dampening field planned to be placed into effect by the clergy to make divine magic the only game in town. Oh hell yeah! And mind you, this could be the gathering of 1,000 followers or something on the hills of the last known place that the gods set their foot on the lands, right? And things have gotten so bad, and the PCs are like, ooh, they're making pilgrimages. We better get the hell out of here or get our thing done before divine energy sweeps through the land or something, right? And now, like I said, maybe this is the next step in this might be the player characters undoing the thing that happens to be done, and this would be a really great way to have conflict with the goodly institutions in your world. Like they don't want to. It's not a mind control where they want to stop everyone. They just want to stop crime or violence or something like that. Yeah, it's been a while, man. Yeah. Cameron says, I want to play a hypnotist that can get a war band of orcs to sing the time warp. I can't do it on the live stream, but now you've got that song going through my head. Oh no, don't get me to do it. Yeah. Oh man. Grable says, summoning the avatar of justice to possess a chosen vessel, and voila, magical Judge Dredd. Yeah, I mean, it might be something like that where within the scope of the world, the players know for a fact, like, hey, when this thing happens, the angels are going to come down and lay waste. Now, the laying waste might not be let's make sure that we think of this as not a physical destruction, but a prevention of being able to do the thing you want to do, right? Whether it is, as in the last days of American crime, there's a signal that stops supposedly all crime. And how do you define that? It could be something that strikes everyone blind. It could be something that steals everyone's voices. It could be a paralytic effect where your mind is still intact, but your body is kind of like a baby, where the people in authority can just like grab you by the hand and gently take you back home or something like that. Like there might be something so overreaching that there might be something so overreaching that it becomes the overriding mechanism that the player characters have to fight against. And before it happens, of course, much like this heist movie, the time limit is coming. And if there's a dragon lord or whatever that has left his domicile and will return and lay down the law, or the gods of justice and righteousness are going to come out of the sky and send their hordes down to instill law and order, this might be what's necessary to do, like to beat the clock as well. Now, Gaster Two Soul says, so let's say this signal is in the center of town, and surrounding the signal is the most strong. In fact, it might be so strong that people could barely even sneeze without getting like electric volt or something. But when we get closer to the outskirts, the signal becomes weaker, and thus the levels of crime escalates to the point of absolute chaos. Absolutely. I mean, there might be, yeah, like Rickard says, there's a reason the circle of eight exists. Yeah, there might be zones and things are getting out of hand. And much, what are some classic spells? Like in Dungeons and Dragons, you have like a zone of truth or sanctuary spells or something. And this city there might be dials to turn them up and down. And the people have just gotten to the point where they just have to turn them up. Like, for example, there might be ancient runes in the city walls or in the city, like you said, Gaster, in the town square or something. And when the players might need to engage in doing something in a region that they know, if they are detected, or there's something arcane or technological that if they're detected, it'll be very hard for them to do a thing. Like imagine them trying to commit a heist, like a pickpocket, but maybe instead of like a signal that shuts their brain down, maybe they begin to glow a certain way, or their thoughts become public to anyone and everyone who is sensitive to what the PCs are trying to do. You know, like, hey, if you try to commit a crime, all of a sudden your thoughts are broadcast out there for everyone to see. Or like the zone of truth, you're trying to deceive someone, but you can't do it because you have to tell the truth to do it. So how do you make a deception? How do you deceive someone in this area? Maybe you have to change your tactics or whatnot. And I think it's kind of a cool way to have to move around or navigate or change the tactics the PCs might need to use, especially if you want to run like much like this movie, The Last Days of American Crime. Maybe all the player characters are criminals, not necessarily playing like in Dungeons and Dragons, playing rogues or something. But if you're playing Cyberpunk or Shadowrun, yeah, you're criminals. you're untrustworthy in many ways, and bucking the system. Coloring outside the lines, and maybe this region is full of good and just folk, although maybe a little bit, totalitarian, or maybe they're just pushed to that brink. Gasper Two Soul says perhaps there are walled off parts of the city in order to keep people from getting out, or maybe even getting in. Yeah, the council like slams the walls shut, like they're able to control the flow of humanity by controlling how and where they move, much like a walled city. Maybe there are walls that can cut people off in the streets. Maybe that's the thing that stops the crime. It could be massive sweeping arrests that are made. If you want to go far more mundane instead of supernatural, maybe there's a crackdown. I mean, we see that happen in our own society, right? Where things get so out of hand, the authorities have no recourse but to sweep everyone up. It's the nuke everyone and let God sort them out, right? It might be something like that, where Okay, they're just going to do massive sweeps, bring in the military or what have you, and just go after everyone. And the player characters might be thrown in the middle of it. That's really a good. That might be a really good way to have an urban exploration or adventure. Even random encounters. Guys know I love random encounters, even though a lot of people don't. But the random encounters could just be patrols and sweeps and uh, spies and watchtowers and uh, yeah. Uh, Death Angel's Shadow says escape from and fill in the blank, right? Like escape from New York, escape from LA. There might have been some other escape movies I don't know of, but yeah, walled cities or something. And so while I don't suggest everyone and anyone go check out The Last Days of American Crime, I bet the graphic novel is probably a whole lot better. That flick has some pretty terrible dead zones in it, but yeah, I mean, heck, even the idea that like Gaster Two Soul says, maybe even starve to death, like we've seen cities and islands like the Escape from New York or the Escape from series with Kurt Russell, or an island that is designed to hold prisoners or criminals or something. I think there's even, man, this movie is old, where there was a whole planet. It was like a trash planet, and they would just dump criminals on it for no good reason. And I think they dumped some old soldier on it. I think Kurt Russell was in that movie too, but I don't remember the name of it. I think it was just called Soldier. Whatever. Yeah, Gaster. I saw. I'll pick it with you. Says Gaster says, or take a step into Lovecraft land for a second, and perhaps there's something in the city, maybe some sort of entity that chooses your punishment on what you have done. Playing judge, jury, and executioner. I mean, maybe that explains the oddly humanoid holes pushing into the walls with no end. Just an endless darkness of stone as the prisoners are forced into a point they won't be able to get out of. Yeah, I like that. Oh, it is the movie Soldier. Finally, I got something right. Thank you, Dead Man. Um, yeah, there could be like what a great I yeah, the movie Soldier. Yeah, Dead Man put in the link in the Discord. Yeah, what a great. I'm sure it's timed out now, but kind of a good good premise there. I don't think that's a waste of time. But yeah, the idea that like an aboleth, an entity, some kind of um, dark evil down in the city is trying to keep control over everything. And when you commit some kind of crime or you have a particular thought, there's a punishment to it. And mind you, like Gaster Two Soul is suggesting, each punishment might be related to the actions taken. So violence might be met with some kind of physical punishment. Deception might be met with some kind of uh, illusion or confusion on the individual that's trying to deceive. If you're a thief and you're trying to steal something, maybe something then is taken from you or whatever. I mean, and this evil, or well, maybe not necessarily evil, but maybe a powerful entity underneath the city or community or what have you. It could be feeding off of these dark impulses. It could be causing the dark impulses to have more to feed from. It who knows? I mean, there may be all kinds of things. It kind of a cool idea. Now, of course, the player characters, if you want to flip the script, the players might be on the side of good and law, and they are trying to instill these kind of things. But I like the idea that the players are counter to what's going on. And mind you, the setup to this might be important as well. For example, if they're going to set up poles or towers or something that's going to send out a signal, or there are, I don't know, let's come up with something like sirens that are in watchtowers who will sing across the city, and they 24 hours they sing these chants that keep people under control. Maybe there's a way for the player character to stop them from singing, or the constabulary that's going to come into the town in the first place to set up these towers for the singing sirens. Maybe the PCs try to set them on fire and knock them down, or maybe there are riots going all over the town that are preventing the authorities from setting up these sound zones in the first place, or the ancient runes in the walls or the ground in the town square can be pried up. The stone can be pried up if just given the opportunity to do so. Like, there might be ways for the PCs to stop a thing. uh, Gaster says violence in the hole, thievery in the hole, sneezing in the salad in the hole, overcooking fish, surprisingly, in the hole. Yeah, one punishment for no matter what you do. Um, yeah, it might be some draconian rules like, hey, listen, if you step out of line in the slightest manner, you get punished or something, like overcooking fish and sneezing in a salad bar or something. It kind of hilarious, but I love it. I love it a lot, especially if the PCs come into a city where everyone has like a forced smile on their face, and they're just like, "Hi, how are you? I am so happy to meet you." And everyone is like overly polite, and the PCs are like, "Why is everybody acting this way? This is kind of strange." Yeah. Egg of Death says the sirens, like in the Time Machine. I don't remember the sirens. I remember that in the Illinois. I don't remember. I'm going to say yes because I'm trying to think of the reference. Um, yeah, there could be singing sirens. There could be, I don't know, like some kind of alarm or sound or bells even. In a lot of these dystopian mind control society type flicks or movies or IP, people have to take injections sometimes, or they have to sit in front of TV screens that spout some kind of propaganda that everyone is into. You could even go down the rabbit hole of the implant or the uh, Suicide Squad, the Running Man, collar around the necks of various individuals. PCs have the collars for whatever reason there is, and if they do a thing or they don't do a thing by a certain time, or they leave a certain area, or someone flicks a button, or a certain timer goes off, boom, the collar explodes. The collar sends off a signal in their head or whatever. Yeah, that kind of thing. Like Death Angel Shadow says, sneezing on the salad bar, off with your head. Yeah, listen. I'm 50, so I've been on a number of cruises, and oh my god, so people, no home training, I swear, when it comes to buffet salad bars, man. Oh my god, obey. Thank you, Death Angel. Ego Death says the Morlocks lure them into the underground. Yeah, the Morlocks in the Illinois. Eloy? I don't eat. I think it's the Ennui. Ennui, I believe it's what it is. Yeah, like Death Angel says, yeah, it literally blows your head off. Yeah, now of course, as in like the Running Man or something, you really don't want it to be like save or die kind of thing. But there might be let's say there's a timer, or the player characters must stay within a certain region or something, or maybe they cannot approach a certain place. Like, for example, if they approach the royal family or a office building or a government installation, the the neck implant or whatever, or the thing around their control mechanism around their neck starts to beep, and they've got 10 seconds to stop what they're doing or leave the region or area or whatever. And like I said, the parameters, you can turn the parameters up and down. Like, is it a matter of crossing a red line that causes this psychic intrusion or audio alarm signal to go off, or is it more or less like the actual thoughts that you have, right? Or maybe it's not the thoughts, maybe it's the actions. So you can think about all the evil things you want to do, but the minute you draw your blade, the act of getting ready to instill violence is the thing that causes the signals to go off. Now, one idea may be like maybe there's a weakness to the system, like overload. So if one PC attempts to commit crime, the Death Angel says it's the Eloy. Okay, yeah, I'm always incorrect on something. Um, the it could be that if one or more PCs try to commit some kind of violation, let's make it violence. So they want to get into a fight, and then a signal happens, and everyone's head starts to hurt. But maybe it only affects a certain number of people, or it's directed at a particular region. So that leaves other people to do other things, while the people who are being blasted by the psychic waves or the sound waves or something are hurt. Other people can then sneak around and do something else. That might be a way, like that might be the weakness of the system, that it can only target a certain cone or a region or area of the city, or the only, if it's pointing northwest, it can't go southeast, or the system has a power, some kind of is linked to some kind of power, meaning like those singing sirens. Hey, take out the singing sirens, everything stops, and you start a fire and they start choking, and the song stops or whatever, or someone tries to bribe them so they stop their song, or cotton balls in the ears or something like that, right? I mean, there might be all kinds of ways to get around it, and that are a bit awkward, but sure. Let's see. So Gaster's got a big part here. Okay, so let's see. Gaster says, I feel like if we went for a less decorated style or went for a more sterile design, I feel that would kind of work with this idea of pure justice. For if there is no violence, then there is no justice. And when there is no justice, then you're just holding people hostage. Yeah, very, very much true. Why I went for the body-shaped holes in the wall is an idea of mind games. Body-shaped holes in the wall. For some reason, I'm getting the idea of like these faceless authority using these man catcher poles to grab people and shove them into the body-shaped holes in the wall. But anyway, Gaster goes on to say, my idea of mind games is scare tactics, basically being like how in George Orwell's 1984, you have the big brother propaganda where it scares the rebelliousness out of someone and acts as the saying of, hey, if you want to play with us, then maybe one of these holes will be yours. And that's the other thing too, is propaganda, right? Like, do the people that are underneath this regime, do they desire this? Like, is this something they're going, yeah, you know what? It's a little uncomfortable, but it works for us. Or are they in a forced situation? Like socially, a lot of times, you guys know as that throughout life, there are times where social pressures make people do things or adhere to things or accept things, even though everyone within that social situation knows that the thing is not right, but everyone is looking at everyone else to adhere to it, so they themselves adhere to it because they feel like everyone else is thinking the same thing, but in reality, everyone hates it. You know, um, uh, Prohibition in the U.S. is a good example of that, where alcohol sales are illegal. Everyone else is like, yeah, it's illegal. And everyone points at each other like, you shouldn't be drinking. Yet everyone themselves is like, yeah, get me some alcohol if you can. Cameron's like, man catchers, what do you do with your man catchers? Yeah. A little 50 Shades of Gray there. Right? Yeah. Oh, man. I'm sorry. The rest of Gaster's comment is, perhaps with children in a city, perhaps the children are told from birth that if they do a bad thing, they'll die. So it would make the townsfolk more submissive. Yep. And yes, you're basically correct. They literally shove these prisoners into these human-shaped holes in the wall and basically would force them there until they're stuck. Which would be, now, mind you, to set off like you don't want to do this last days of American crime idea and surprise the players. So giving hints as to what this city is like or habitat or whatever, you got to leave the clues, like Gaster's suggesting man-shaped holes in the wall. Maybe there are prisoners in there, or it's like carbonite being frozen in carbonite, and the average citizens are just walking around like it's no big thing, and the PCs are like, why the hell are these very realistic humanoids stuck in the wall? Like, what's that about? And everyone's just like leaving flowers in front of some of them. Others are like walking past the walls and tisking, like, shouldn't have done it, you know. Leaving clues as to what's going on, and much like the movie The Last Days of American Crime, everyone's committing crimes. Like, crime has overwhelmed, has like risen 400% and whatnot. So the players might not be the only protagonists in this concept. There's might be lots of people doing things, to the point where maybe the players are like, hey, we need to commit this one crime here, but these other people are disrupting what we're doing and they're bringing the heat, and we need to get away from them or stop these other criminals because they're bringing heat to what we need to do. Or it could be the opposite. Hey, let's get these street thugs or low-level criminals to distract the authorities while we do this other thing. Now, mind you, we could have maybe this signal system might be mobile. So it could be technologically mobile, like, oh, it's moved around on wagons or the back of vehicles, like sound waves on the back of a Humvee or something like that, and they're moved around. And when they, bolt it down into the ground and raise the banners or lift up the poles and turn on the power system and whatnot, it could send out a signal that stops all the crime. And the player characters either have to run away or throw a monkey wrench into the system or deceive the authorities to get them to set up these units so that the players can go somewhere else to do a thing. Yeah. Ego just says, imagine if each apartment had one of those holes as a permanent reminder. A family or friend stuck in there. You're trying to have a family meal or watch television, and your eye just keeps moving over to this hole in the wall with somebody stuck in it, or it could be empty and it's like just waiting for you. That's cool. Cameron says there's an episode of Doctor Who where Britain was living on a space whale they were torturing, and people had to choose for it to continue every year, and if they choose to do it, they have their memory erased. I'm confused, and I love it. Now, that's another kind of punishment as well. Like, maybe it's not a paralytic sound. It could just be memory erase, or the desire to commit the sin, whatever the society considers to be the sin, gets sliced out of that person's brain. That's a possibility as well. Like, whether it is an implant that's stuck in the back of their head, and you see like a little plate or something, and they're like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" You're like, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" There is nothing wrong with me. I am fine. Hey, weren't we supposed to, I don't know, commit some kind of like a heist or something? I know not what you talk about, right? Like, it might be something like that. I mean, it could be something as simple as a city guard like knocking you to the ground and taking like some kind of hole punch and blasting it and like hole punching you in the back of the head, like sticking a staple gun or something. Or it could be something more intrusive, like a slug going into your ear, or a spider that clings to the back of your head, or hey, maybe this evil entity that's down in the bowels of the city sends out a tendril while you sleep, and black oily tendrils go into your eyes and mouth or something to temporarily or permanently change your thoughts. Mufa says, instead of working against the system, maybe the PCs work for it. They are investigators or control it somehow, or they are hired because some group is evading the spell or mind control. I think I kind of like the idea of the players working working for the system, especially if it's like a procedural, like the player characters are like, are the investigators and guards or whatnot, or this is weird to say, the players might be the criminals who are infiltrating some other place to establish their own control, right? Like two warring nations, neither good nor evil, are just essentially trying to push their influence of control over top of the lines of the other one. So you could kind of combine the two where they're both criminals and authority as well. That's a possibility. Much like our own world government's going into somebody else's country to do a thing. It's like in your own country, you're the good guy, but when you go to the other person's country, you're the infiltrator. You're the you're the bad guy. Death's Angel Shadows is cruelty to another living species in order for your own populace to survive. Yeah, we normally, like in fantasy and science fiction, we normally think of multiple parallel sentient species all existing together, but maybe there is maybe the species are still at war as to who thinks should be on top, and humanity just happens to be one of a number of them. Hey, what's going on there, man? Peace to you too, dude. What's going on? We are actually coming to an end here, by the way, guys. Loans run type society, but where criminals are terminated in a public ceremony. Do you mean egg of death? Do you mean like? Do you mean actual loans, or is that a misspell? Because I like the idea. Oh, Logan's Run. Oh, see, I was thinking of like a repo possession kind of thing. Like the PCs are repo men, and people can't pay back their loans, and they're like criminals terminated in a public ceremony. But I like Logan's Run. Logan's Run, where that's another one we could do. I don't know. Yeah. Lastly, Gasper says perhaps the wall moves a little as the human-shaped walls begin to change and slowly begin to morph the body in some way, maybe even break a leg or two. Ow! Oh, you're saying they're trapped in the walls, but they're still awake, and then the walls morph and start to break their bodies and their bones and stuff. That's nasty. Oh. Maybe even a few guards drag out a completely destroyed body that has like compound fractures and like maybe just these absolute mangled bodies. Family members and friends are stuck into the walls, and when you commit a crime, they are punished. Ow. Ow. Yeah, Egg of Death. Both Logan's Run and running from your loans both sound like a really cool idea, man. Yeah, repo, the player characters being repo men. But anyway, guys, we are coming to the end here. I do have to head off to work, but you know what? I really appreciate you guys stopping by. Like I said, some of these. Am I suggesting that you run out to Netflix, at least here in the States, Netflix, and see The Last Days of American Crime? I'm actually not suggesting that. It's not really good. And even how the protagonists go up against it is that they destroyed their own premise because of how this one person's like, how do you resist it? You just don't care. And I was like, what? That makes no sense. Anyway, it's kind of dumb. But like I said, sometimes the premise is actually pretty cool. And, you know, us here on the channel, you know, take a great idea, steal it. And you know what? Here's the other best thing about using something, a great premise and a terrible execution. No one's seen it. No one cares, right? No one you know has seen these movies or TV shows or something because they were just like, oh yeah, I got 5 minutes into it and thought it was stupid, right? So yeah, you can absolutely use these premises and no one's going to even realize it at all. So anyway, guys, thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow, very bright and early. Everyone have a great one. Thanks for watching. See you. Bye.